Welcome to Beyond the Wish, where we delve into the power of wishes and the people who make them possible. Today's episode, we have the honor of sitting down with Andrew, a remarkable father who has experienced the wish journey not once but twice. Andrew is the proud wish dad of Mara and Jay, both of whom have had the life-changing impact of a wish. In this episode, Andrew opens up about what it means to be a wish dad to two extraordinary children, sharing the joys, the challenges, the unforgettable moments that has shaped his family's experience. Join us as we explore Andrew's unique perspective, hear stories from Mara and Jay's wish journeys, and learn how the wish journey brought hope and happiness to their lives. Then, tune in again next week as Wish Experience Manager Kayla talks with Mara on her and her brother's wish journeys.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Andrew. This is going to be fun. We're really excited to hear what you have to say about your experience, and we're going to start just having some engagement about your family. When you think about your family's journey, what's the first image or memory that comes to mind?
I don't know if it's an image or memory. I just think of the four of us when we're in the middle of it, and the word tough just comes to mind because it was just an absolute constant state of having to just go to get the kids healthy. And I guess there's one image right after Jay was born. He immediately had issues, but my daughter Mara had to have surgery in the middle of her treatment because her PICC line had gotten clogged. And so she had to be in Wisconsin. Jay's in the NICU. Neither my wife nor I had slept at all in hours upon hours upon hours. And there's this image of actually my father-in-law, like basically asleep on Mara's hospital bed as she's recovering. And it was just kind of a symbol of like, it was all hands on deck. We just had to keep going. And it's like, for whatever reason, that image is always stuck in my head because that the first 10 days Jay was alive because it was right in the middle of Mara's treatment. So we were already going. And then he came out and had issues right away. And it was just an absolute crazy time, but we just kept going.
That's incredible. It's very visual when you're describing it. I can visualize exactly what that would look and feel like. So tell us a little bit more about your family. Tell us about Mara, Jay, from their moments of birth and how you arrived at having to endure going through what you've been through.
Yeah. So starting in the present, Mara's 10, going into 5th grade, happy, sweet, unbelievably social, active little kid. Jay is 7, also happy, sweet, super active, and both just having great summers. We keep saying Mara's having a 90s summer because she's 10 going into 5th grade, and it's just been like, get out of the house. And so she's just been running all over the neighborhood, playing with friends, having just a like I said, a great summer. How I came to be involved with Make-A-Wish was, when Mara was 2, she was diagnosed with severe aplastic anemia. And then from there had to have for about a year underwent treatment. It's called intense immune suppression therapy, where, she was hooked up to an IV for 24 hours a day for about the first 6 months of treatment. And then eventually that tapered off a little bit. So, and she's only 2, she's hooked up to an IV machine. She couldn't, if she wanted to move, the IV machine had to move with her. She started responding to treatment right about 6 months into treatment, which was great. But about that time is also when our son Jay was born, that my wife was pregnant when Mara was diagnosed. And another image I'll never forget was when Mara's doctor found out my wife was pregnant. He kind of said, well, that's going to be the wild card because going through treatment takes, it's 24/7. He's like, if you're going to have a newborn, that's going to be really hard. That could make things even more difficult. And, boy, did it, because, Jay had all these issues right away. So when Jay came out, he had microcephaly, small head, and a few other issues that led the doctors to think something was wrong. But after being in a NICU, actually, they couldn't, what they feared he may have, he did not have. So we kind of thought, now we can go back to focusing on getting Mara better. But as it was wild, because like as Mara was getting better, and we were tapering her off of her treatment, it started becoming more and more clear that something was up with Jay. And so the week that we got the news that Mara was going into remission, that Mara went into remission and she's, no longer sick and she can go and start, getting back into normal life, we'd gotten news that we were almost positive then that something was seriously wrong with Jay. We just weren't sure what. And then 2 weeks after Mara went into remission, we got his diagnosis. And so Jay has what's called ATRX syndrome, which is an X-linked genetic syndrome. So it's different than what Mara had in that it's not in and of itself life-threatening, but it's lifelong, so it causes pretty severe physical and mental disabilities. And at that point, there was only, I think, 250 known cases of it ever. You asked about images earlier. There's an image, because I remember I was on the train on my way home from work when Lauren texted me, my wife texted me and said, just got Jay's diagnosis, it's ATRX syndrome. And I just kind of sat in the train. I couldn't really react because there's a zillion people around me. And I just in my head kept saying pretty bad words, but I just couldn't believe, because severe aplastic anemia for Mara at the age she got it was like 1 in 2 million. And then the first thing I Google when I see ATRX syndrome is there's only 250 known cases of it. And then the image that they show of a kid with ATRX is like the worst case scenario. I'm in my head, I'm just like, what are the odds of that? And then your head goes to, okay, well, what does that mean? And then it also goes to, one of the things we were very concerned about with Mara when we were deciding her treatment plan, because with severe aplastic anemia, there's 2 options. You can either do a stem cell transplant or you can do the immune suppression therapy. The immune suppression therapy doesn't work if the underlying cause of severe aplastic anemia is genetic related. So my first thought was, oh my gosh, if Jay's got this genetic thing, what if that means underlying Mara's was genetic, and therefore the treatment she just went through, isn't going to work. Over time, we realized that they were completely unrelated, and the treatment she got was what she should have gotten. But that was an immediate fear as well, because you're just like, oh my gosh. So then it was like this discovery phase with Jay of like, okay, well, what does ATRX mean? And what does that mean for his life? What does that mean for our life? How do we make sure he has, the best outcomes possible? Is there anything immediate we need to be doing? It was very different than Mara's, because with Mara's, it was 24/7 around the clock care. It was grueling, but every single day you woke up and you knew exactly what you had to do. With Jay, I'll never forget, we got on a phone call with one of the geneticists who had discovered ATRX syndrome. He was retiring. He's like 90 years old, guy from South Carolina. And he was explaining to us what ATRX was or is. And, my next thought was like, okay, well, what do we need to do now? Like, what's the treatment? What do I do? And he just goes, make sure you get him in physical therapy and make sure you love him. Mm. And I remember thinking, done. I'll do both of those things. That's easy. But I was like, is there anything else? And there really isn't. There's very, very few doctors who've ever even heard of what ATRX is. And as far as we know, there's no real treatment other than what he said to get the best outcomes. It's a whole lot of love in the family and a lot of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, swim therapy. He's in a zillion different therapies. And all in all, he's doing extremely well. Part of the reason I think he's doing extremely well is one of the things that comes with ATRX syndrome is a lot of the kids, particularly when they're, first born until 2 or 3 years old, have horrendously bad gastrointestinal problems. And a lot of them can't eat at all. So they have to go on feeding tubes. And we discovered with Jay, the reason for that is that he also has cystic fibrosis. My wife up through that point spent probably 5-6 hours a day just force feeding him, just trying to get him to eat, because what we found in through this process, what we found out eventually is that his body, before he was diagnosed with CF and we were giving him medicine, his body couldn't break down proteins and fats properly, so eating hurt, so they didn't want to eat. And then eventually he had to be hospitalized a bunch of times because he got pancreatitis, which is crazy as a 2.5-year-old. And he was in intensive care for almost 2 weeks because the pancreatitis had progressed so badly. But it was through that process. A few other hospitalizations later, one of the doctors thought, maybe it's CF. Because at that point it didn't impact his lungs or anything. But then realized that's what it was. And the reason he was having all these eating issues and gastrointestinal issues is CF. And it was impacting his pancreas, which regulates blood sugar and secretes the digestive enzymes you need to break down proteins and fats. And so, believe it or not, the CF diagnosis was like a blessing for us, because once we did that, we were able to start giving him a digestive enzyme called creon, and he was like a new kid after that. Like you just give it to him before he eats any meal, and he can eat anything he wants, and that allowed him to grow, and he's not in pain anymore, and now he just lives a happy little life. But that's kind of the whole story. Is it was a wild many years, but now we're at a place where things are pretty stable and everybody feels pretty good.
You've definitely outlined a host of challenges, both for Mara and for Jay. As a parent myself, and just trying to like look at it through your eyes, was there a point in time where you just felt like, am I going to make it through the next day? Or how did you and Lauren, your wife, navigate that?
I mean, the answer to that is no, not really. Did you ever have that thought? Because you didn't have any other choice. Mara needed to get better, and in order to get better, she had to have, her treatment. It had to be in her blood level at like a certain level all the time, which meant she had to get it on the dot every 8 hours. So like at 4 a.m. every day, we wake her up. She had to be on a, PICC line IV all day, every day in order to keep her kidneys healthy. And like, if you screwed any of that up, then it's not good. And so we would have people ask us a lot during that time, how are you guys doing this? And my response would always be like, well, what's my alternative? Like you have no choice. You have to keep going. You have one job, and that is it. And so everything else gets pushed to the side, that's for sure. But you just kind of keep going. And then some of it is like you learn through the process, like Lauren and I, my wife and I, like figuring out how to, there's different things that she was really good at. There's different things I was really good at. And there's things that overlapped. And then at the end of the day, because we had to keep our house basically sterile when Mara was sick. She didn't have an immune system. And so at the end of every day, we would spend, an hour or so having to like clean and sterilize the kitchen, because we had basically like a nurse's station in there. We just found ourselves staying up an extra hour just talking. And, that process I think was very helpful for both of us. It just became kind of therapeutic. It wasn't anything planned. It just kind of started happening. But, you just keep going. Once we kind of had a moment to breathe, then it was just like, what the hell was that? We had kind of a hard time once we could actually go out and see people, because there was like a 4-year period where, we really didn't see friends. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. It was, for me, work, and then home, healthcare, and hospital. And that was it and then my wife, it was home, hospital. That was it for like a 4-year period. So then once we were able to go out and about again, it was funny. Both of us are pretty social people, but we found that like neither of us were any good at small talk anymore, nor did we care to have small talk really. Cause it was just like, no, let's get into it. Let's talk about stuff. And so it took some time for us to like figure out how to reintegrate back into the world. But we've definitely done that now. We live in a great neighborhood with great friends and have figured it out.
You've talked about initially, tough being one of those choices, right? You have no other choice. You need to be tough. You talked about just the constant nature of the caretaking and being go, go, go. What do you think you may have been, and Lauren, carrying emotionally that maybe others didn't see? They're seeing you as we've got this, because you have no other choice. But I can only imagine in your heart and in your mind too, that there must have been something very heavy about the experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the decisions we were making were, incredibly important decisions, and we didn't necessarily know what the right one was at first. I mean, just as an example, when Mara was first diagnosed, there's 2 treatment paths. You could either do a stem cell transplant, or you could do this intense immune suppression therapy. Now, if it was a genetic cause, you only had one choice. It's a stem cell transplant. But if it's an idiopathic cause, which is what we determined for Mara, then either option is available. Now, in the past, standard of care had always been, if immune suppression therapy is an option, you start with that, and if it doesn't work, you go to stem cell transplant. But right when Mara was diagnosed, there was a growing number of hospitals and doctors who were advocating for skip the immune suppression therapy and go straight to stem cell transplant. And when she was initially diagnosed, that was kind of the direction we were getting from people, but that didn't feel right to us. And then we looped in with Children's Wisconsin, where she was ultimately treated, and because they had a clinic specifically for kids who had bone marrow failure. And through that process, we determined that we believed that it was an idiopathic cause and that we believed that immune suppression therapy was the right call. And that then if immune suppression therapy didn't work, that it wouldn't set her back if she then had to have a stem cell transplant. And like none of those things were 100% known to us, but we knew we had to make a call on A, where she should get treated, and then B, what the treatment should be. We had guidance from doctors, but ultimately it was Lauren and me making the call. And that's a heavy burden to bear. But one of the things we were very smart about is I remember when we were making the decision, we looked each other in the eyes and we're like, look, we are going to make the absolute best decision we can possibly make. And it may ultimately mean we got to change course. It may ultimately have been the wrong decision, but we are very confident that we're making the best decision with the information that we have in the best interest of our kid. And we're not going to Monday morning quarterback ourselves. If it doesn't work out, we will go to the next thing, but we're not going to second guess ourselves afterwards. We're going to do everything we can to get as much information as we can, talk everything through, and then make the decision. But that was a very hard decision that weighs on you.
Absolutely. You feel like literally your children's lives are in your hands,
Mm-hmm.
right? It sounds like you've become very educated, though. I feel like I'm almost talking to a medical doctor right
You should hear my
now.
wife talk. She
like,
really
wow,
got it.
this is
She's really
impressive.
got it.
We're going to switch gears a little bit. Tell us about how you first heard about Make-A-Wish.
Growing up playing sports on ESPN, every so often, a kid who was granted a wish, it would make ESPN. And so you knew what Make-A-Wish was through that. It was this foundation that granted wishes to sick kids. And so it's always been a positive organization in my mind, but never in a million years did I think I would be, a part of it, or my kids would be getting wishes from Make-A-Wish. I don't think anybody expects your kids to get sick or need any of this. But in terms of how we directly got involved, it was Mara's nurses at the Mac Fund Center at Children's Wisconsin, where she was treated, suggested to my wife one of the days they were up in clinic that, hey, aplastic anemia is a Make-A-Wish disease. Like, you guys should apply for a wish. And, Mara was like, all in on Disney and Disney princesses and all that stuff. And we knew, just from knowing what Make-A-Wish is generally, knew that Disney was big involved with Make-A-Wish. And so we just thought that'd be awesome, get through all this. And then she can go do a Disney trip because, she couldn't go on vacation. She didn't do any preschool. She didn't have, no play dates, didn't get to play with friends, really didn't get to see family even, other than my in-laws and us. And so she hadn't really got to experience much. And so the idea of being able to, end all this, get healthy, and then go to Disney was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. And so that's how we found out that way. And it was the same way when my son got his wish, was that it was his nurses at his cystic fibrosis clinic at Lutheran General in Park Ridge were like, hey, cystic fibrosis is also a Make-A-Wish disease. Like, you guys should apply. And we said, absolutely.
Was there anything that surprised you about the wish journey and the process? Anything unexpected, maybe that you would have had in your mind, but it played out in a different way?
I mean, I don't know that this is a surprise, but it was just cool how smooth everything went and how easy it was. That absolutely nothing in our life prior to that had been easy at all. And so just having this group of people who didn't know us at all, who got money from people who also didn't know us at all, so that they could send our kids and our family on this trip in a way that was zero burden on us, just fun, and allowed us to be together, it was just cool. And I didn't understand that really until we were there and in it. And even going through the process, it was everything was just they were always checking in on us. They did all these pop-ins before we went. And at one point before we went to Disney, Mara got, they had Ariel do a FaceTime with her because it was during COVID, and it just little stuff like that. It was just really cool. And we didn't have to plan it. We basically told them what we wanted, and then it just happened, from start to finish, which was just a cool thing after 4 years of that beforehand.
Thinking about this is all you ever thought about, and now you had something completely, a whole new experience to have together as a family too. What was it like seeing moments of joy come back into your family's life?
It was, I mean, it's funny because we had plenty of moments of joy before that, but they were all heavy. It was Mara's responding to treatment. Mara's in remission. Oh my gosh, Jay figured out how to stand up. Oh my gosh, Jay's walking. And but those were all extreme moments of joy, but it was with illness and a syndrome kind of lurking in the background. And so there were these milestones that you just couldn't believe they were happening, but it was the reason that you couldn't believe it was happening was because of this illness that was kind of underpinning all of it. The Disney trip in particular was moments of joy, but easy, light joy, just we're together, we're having fun, this is great, and I don't have to worry about anything. It's not, oh, she progressed in illness and something good happened and now I feel joy. It was just joy, and that part was cool. And then Mara and Jay just absolutely loved every second of Disney, and so it was compounded the longer we were there.
You may have already answered this by what you just said, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you had to describe Make-A-Wish in one word before your family's experience and one word after, what would that be?
Before the experience, helpers, I would say. And one of the things going through treatment, I was always amazed at organizations like Make-A-Wish, or even we had to stay at the Ronald McDonald House for a period of time, and there would always be these volunteers that would come and make dinner for everybody in the Ronald McDonald House. And I always was like, man, they don't know anyone here and they're just doing it because they want to help. And I don't know why it amazed me. I couldn't believe that these people who didn't know any of us at all would just show up and help because they wanted to help. And I just always thought that was really cool. And so in my head, Make-A-Wish, it was that, and it's still that, but also it was just joy. I mean, you allowed our family to be together easily and experience these moments of just easy joy, which it's not that I didn't anticipate it. I just didn't know that it would hit me the way it did. So you're so used to just being, what's the next thing? What's the next thing I got to do? And then that all kind of broke away a bit, which was very helpful for all of us.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the sibling experience and the dynamic between Mara and Jay. Very few families experience two wish journeys. Mm-hmm. Did either the wishes feel different? Did the second one feel different from the first? Did you see commonalities?
Well, ours, it was a little unique because they kind of merged, because, Mara's wish initially was Disney, but then COVID hit and it kept having to get delayed because of COVID. And then we ultimately decided, you know what, let's do a big jungle gym in our backyard, which both kids use to this day. And then with Jay also is a big character guy, loves action, loves motion, loves we put him on some roller coasters at Disney that were a little questionable, but he did them anyways and he loved them. And so we knew he would want to go to Disney. So they were almost merged. And it was cool because when we were it's as if both wishes are both kids. Jay knows how to climb up the ladder and go down the slide on our jungle gym, and he does it every day. And now he'll do it where he figured out how to turn our hose on in our backyard. So he'll turn the hose on and he'll spray the slide so it goes faster down. And then Mara and her friends are swinging out there all the time still. So it's like both of theirs. And then Disney, it was equally as magical for Mara as it was for Jay. So it was a little unique in that they were merged, and that's how they've grown up. Is the second Mara got done with her illness and went into remission, it was on to taking care of Jay. So, from Mara's perspective, she's had an extremely unique little childhood because it was initially kind of cut off and had to go through treatment and didn't get to play with friends and all that, and finally she gets healthy, and then her brother's got this thing, and she's witnessed her brother have all sorts of scary medical issues, and he's watched how he's had to learn how to sit up. For a second, we weren't sure if he'd even be able to sit up, and then stand, and then walk, and then he's had a whole bunch of setbacks in between, and she's witnessed all of that. And then COVID hits in the middle of all of it too. So it's been just a unique experience for both of them. But I try to think of myself in Mara's eyes, and as a 10-year-old, what she's experienced is pretty crazy.
Very mature girl. Lot of life lessons in
she's
that.
mature. Yeah, she's mature beyond her years. That's for sure.
What do you think people often misunderstand about the experience of siblings in the Wish journey?
Of siblings in the Wish journey. Well, I think siblings in an illness journey in general is interesting because, you know, like obviously Mara had her own illness, but then when Jay was having his stuff, I mean, that impacts her as well. I mean, I mean, she has to watch her brother go through all sorts of really hard things. Jay's disability is noticeable. He's the happiest little guy, and he's like the mayor of our little neighborhood now. But like, people look at him, you know, he makes weird noises, and people look, and she doesn't skip a beat with it. I mean, Jay is just her little brother. I guess what I would just say is, in general, like, illness impacts like the whole family. And so I think the siblings and even the parent, I mean, for Lauren and I mean, it was wonderful to be able to go on a vacation that was easy and we could all be together. And, you know, I think people they probably know it intuitively, but they don't actually feel how hard illness is on a whole family. And so then being able for the whole family to be able to be involved in the Wish is really cool.
Did you have a moment that it's kind of seared in your mind of, finally we can breathe?
It's funny because you don't ever fully do that, but there were definitely moments on the Disney trip where you could just see how much fun they were having. And I've told this story before, but like Mara was supposed to be in bed, and Lauren and I were out watching TV when we were at the Give Kids the World Village, and we're in our little condo, and she was supposed to be in bed, and then she started putting notes under the door because she was supposed to be asleep, and it was just like, "Thank you for bringing me here. Jay's the best brother," and it was the coolest thing in the world because she just going into Disney, like, she was supposed to go to Disney 2 years prior to that, and then she was here, and like going into it, she was almost like, well, this is my brother's wish, and I'm old now. And she just loved it. And watching her just have fun with ease just felt like, oh my gosh, that's nice.
Yeah, that moment for her too. You forget the importance of what she's had to carry, and then she's finally like, gosh, I can be free.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to think. I just get to experience what she probably had in her mind too, of what that Disney experience might have looked like for her. How do you think it has impacted your family now that you're in this point of reflection? Had these wishes, after it's all over, how do you guys continue to kind of relive some of those memories?
Well, I mean, we've gone back to Disney as a family because it was like, this was the place where we learned we could just be a normal, happy, joyful family. And so we've been back, and we'll probably go again. And it's like a reminder. It's like, yeah, life was real hard, and it's still hard, but you know, we can still lead a normal, happy life and do easy, fun, joyful things. And I mentioned before, like, there was this weird transition period when we first were able to like go out into the world again, and we weren't really sure how to do it. And then, you know, trips like going to Disney made us realize, okay, yeah, we can do it. Like, we can go and be normal and do normal things and have normal fun and experience normal joy. Maybe there's a little extra planning, maybe there's a little extra worry, but like, we could still do all those things. And, you know, for me, like, the Disney trip solidified that we can do that.
How do you think these wishes may have changed to some degree, Mara and Jay? And how do you think it may have changed you as a father?
I would always preach to our family, like, look, life is hard, but that doesn't mean it can't be good. Like, that was like a mantra I would say over and over. It wasn't like an intentional mantra. I don't have any other mantras, but it's one of those things where you say it enough times, eventually it sinks in and it becomes true. And I think the wishes, and in addition to the wishes, it's just like the amount of people who just were invested in making sure that we had a great time and that it went smoothly and that we got to experience what we experienced, like knowing that there were that many people that had our backs. And beyond the Wish journey, we've experienced that with friends and family and our neighbors and, you know, et cetera, just the way our kids' schools, the way they've embraced the kids. It's like, okay, we've got people that have our back, and yeah, it's right. Life is hard, but it can also be really good. And the wish granting, I think, like, solidified the mantra that we were trying to live by, you know?
The resilience,
Mm-hmm.
right, for all of you, because that is some really That's a journey. That is definitely a journey.
It's definitely a journey.
What would you want other parents facing a similar situation to know?
It is hard. It is very hard. And I think what I've learned over time is running away from the hard isn't going to do any good, but also only dwelling on the hard isn't going to do you any good. So it's like you have to like kind of live right where reality and the hardness of your situation meets optimism and positivity. If you're only optimistic and positive, I think you're going to overlook things. But if you're only here, you can go to a dark place really quickly. And so like maintaining, understanding what it is you're going through is indeed hard. It is indeed unfair, particularly when it's your kids, but it is what it is. You can't change that. And so then you have to do everything you possibly can to move forward, but also like remaining positive and especially together, I think helps the kid get healthy as you go. And so finding that balance is extremely important.
It's an incredible perspective. Incredible perspective. Kind of one last question. If there's one thing you hope every person who supports Make-A-Wish understands after hearing your family story today, what would that be?
Is you're getting your kid healthy, like that is it. That is the only thing that you do. Every day is heavy. Every moment is heavy. Every decision is heavy. Your whole life is heavy, heavy, heavy all the time, no matter what. And then this whole group of people whose entire mission is to make things not heavy and give your kid an experience that your kid has missed out on because your kid couldn't go on vacations or couldn't have anything that wasn't heavy. The just release and ability to exhale that gives families that persists long beyond the trip is something that I don't think people could possibly understand. And so it's not just, you're not like, oh, that's sad they had an illness, send them on a trip. It's like, no, you're helping them move forward in a way that is hugely beneficial to the entire family.
I have an additional question. We have heard sometimes from families that they say, well, don't worry about us. We'll be okay. Give it to somebody else. Give that wish to somebody else. And we always say, we are here for every child who has an eligible condition. We are here for them. How would you talk to a family? What would you say to that family who's saying, no, I don't need this, or we have the means to do this. We can do this on our own.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because that was when Mara's nurses first asked us about it, that like we kind of thought that, because as Mara was going through treatment, we would have people all the time ask us, can we start a GoFundMe? Can we do this? And we're like, we don't, no, we don't want that. Like we'll be fine. Now there were some people who were like, now if you want to set, because we couldn't reuse washcloths because of the bacteria. So like we went through like anything and everything we did was with paper towels. And so we're like, if you want to send us paper towels or diapers, that's fine. Because that's something tangible we can use. And it's annoying to have to go out and buy them all the time. And I think that was before everything was delivered. But it was this weird, like we didn't necessarily want financial contributions. We didn't need people to do stuff like that for us. And then when it was Mara's, I think part of it was like, man, we really want to take Mara on a trip. She's missed out on a whole bunch of trips and the ability to do anything normal. This is what Make-A-Wish is for. And I wouldn't know the first thing about planning a Disney trip because I'd never been to Disney before. So I was like, man, you know what? It would be nice to have just this group of people whose sole purpose is to help plan a trip for us and send us on a trip, and let's do it together. That'll be great. And then once we did it, we're like, oh my gosh, sure, I could have, and we've been back to Disney, and like, sure, we could have paid for a Disney trip and we could have planned the whole thing, but man, it was the thing that made us realize we could then do those things. What it meant to our family was more than I could have imagined, and it was more than just some people paying money to send us on a trip. It was the thing that made us realize, okay, we got this, and we can now move forward.
And it's so great to be able to see something that your child so wanted, and just having that unfold and knowing that they're getting the wish that they've always dreamt of, and having that experience and taking those memories with them, and in their daily life, and being able to have something that is always going to be with them. Like, you can't take that away. And there's other things that can be taken away, but not that.
100%.
Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for being here today. I know we have gotten pure joy out of meeting you, Lauren, Mara, Jay, having you as part of our Make-A-Wish community. I know listeners out there will be inspired by your story, the resilience of your children, the joy that you have brought to your family, this organization. And we are incredibly grateful that you continue to be with us in whatever way you would like to continue to stay involved in the Make-A-Wish organization.
Yeah, thank you. And we're eternally grateful for everything Make-A-Wish has done for our family.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Wish. Tune in next week as we hear about the same wish journey from Mara herself. As Andrew mentioned, it takes a group of helpers, like you, to make wishes possible. If you are moved by today's conversation, we encourage you to learn more about how you can support Make-A-Wish Illinois, whether that's volunteering, donating, or simply sharing our mission. Thank you for listening, and until next time, best wishes.